church for quite a while in a powerful way. And I believe he's trying to get us to understand, like I said when I opened, so I want to title my message, it's kind of strange, but my title is 2 words. 2 words. I have a couple questions for you, and you don't have to answer them out loud. What do you do when you hit a brick wall in your life? What do you do when you can't get an answer to your problem? Or deliverance from an addiction? Or can't get over a hurt? All right, you're going to say, we heard this morning. You're going to hear it again. Can't forgive someone who has wounded you. When your mind tells you that you will always have to suffer this way. When the enemy of your soul convinces you that you can't change the past, so the future isn't worth living. Come on. You see, some of us have struggled for years with the same nagging problem, Dad. The same destructive habits, the same unrelenting guilt and shame from things we did in the past. Some of us have even been prayed for and trusted God for deliverance and even been prayed by men of God and even by people of faith. But what do you do when those walls that keep you bound just won't move? Everything you've tried, the wall won't move. Ephesians 6:12 says, "For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places." In other words, Paul is saying our battle is indeed spiritual, not physical, not of something we cannot or something we can see. You see, the enemy we face ultimately are not people or objects, even though the enemy can use them.
Right, come on.
He can use them for an attack on us, but our true opponent is not other people, it's sin.
Right.
You see, we are fighting evil spirits that want to destroy our minds, want to destroy our sanity, want to destroy our life. He doesn't care about us. He doesn't care about you. He wants to destroy our homes, our families, our churches, our finances. Anything he can do, he's going to try to do it. You see, the disciples faced this situation early in their ministry. Matthew 17, a man brought his son to the disciples, and they couldn't cast the demon out of the boy. And after Jesus cast him out, the disciples asked the Lord why they couldn't do it themselves. And you read the story of the disciples, if you read the Bible, they must have been casting out devils and healing the sick, because in Matthew 10:1 it says, "And when he had called him his 12 disciples, he gave them power against unclean spirits to cast them out and to heal all manner of sicknesses and all manner of diseases." So God gave them the power to do all these things. So they had some success of casting out unclean spirits and healing sickness and disease. But you read this story, all of a sudden, they hit a wall. They couldn't do it. And when they prayed and commanded the spirit to leave this boy, nothing happened. Zero. A brick wall. Well, you said, but God gave them power to cast out these things and heal the sick and diseases. We need to know, listen, we need to know where to find the answers to our brick walls. Hold on. Because if we don't, listen to me, if we don't, we will spend the rest of our life fighting the same devils, the same problems, having the same hindrances in our walk with God as we always have. If we do not find out how to defeat or how to tear down that brick wall. The title to my sermon is 2 words. So here's your 2 words. Matthew 17:21. Howbeit, this kind goeth not out, but by prayer and fasting. Uh-oh. Just lost some of you. Prayer and fasting. Seems a little simple, doesn't it? Oh, prayer and fasting, Brother Ronnie. Okay, we can do that. The Lord said to his disciples in verse 20 of 17, because of your unbelief. Unbelief in prayer and fasting, maybe? Because that's what can keep us from victory in Jesus. Unbelief in prayer, unbelief in fasting. Every one of us will face somewhere along our walk with God a brick wall. And if you haven't, you will.
Right.
But the answer is simple. But sometimes, here it is, sometimes it's hard to grasp. And I've said this for years. Every higher level you want to go in God, you're going to have to go higher spiritually in your level in God to conquer those giants, to conquer those brick walls. So every level we have gone through, church, I preached it when I become pastor. For years we come upon a brick wall. We talked about it to each other. We get so far and we smack that brick wall, and all that excitement that we went through all of a sudden is dead. Anybody hearing me?
Amen.
And then it happens again. We get all excited. Something happens. I'm getting ahead of myself. And the only spiritual way to win this battle is to pray and fast. Listen, it's not a 5-minute prayer in the morning. It's not a 5-minute prayer before you go to bed. I don't know if you've ever read Max Lucado. He's quite the author. He's got some great thoughts and some stories. He talks about the Concorde jet prayer. Have you ever heard of that one? The Concorde jet prayer, smooth. It's silk, brother. It's mighty. Your words reverberate through heaven. And it's like a sonic boom goes through. Have you ever been to one of those prayers? I mean, you're just all over. Woo! 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 If nobody knows what the Concorde, it could go from the United States to Paris in like 3 hours. Just, we have prayers like that. Then he does the crop duster prayer. You're flashy, you fly low. You seem to cover the same ground every time. Ever been there? And some mornings it's tough to get the old engine cranked up. Okay, I'm there. Been there. I've had those sleek, powerful, but yet I've had those ones where I cover the same territory. I did a little crop dusting. Where's he at? I hear him. You stop. But then he goes on to say, listen to this. This hits every one of us. Some prayer lives lack consistency. They're either a desert or an oasis. Long, arid, dry spells interrupted by brief plunges into the water of communion. Woo! And we go days or weeks without a consistent prayer. Here it is. But then something happens. You hear a sermon, or you read a book, or you experience a tragedy in your life. Something leads us to prayer, and what happens? Woo! We dive right back in. We submerge ourselves in prayer and leave refreshed and renewed. We're feeling great, but what happens? The prayer forgets to follow you. You just had that awesome prayer meeting. You dove in there and you got refreshed and you feel good. And then, maybe I'm the only one that's had that happen. We come on a Sunday night or a Wednesday and we get refreshed and God is moving. But Monday morning, that prayer is not anywhere to be found. Tuesday, it's still not there, Brother Farney. We get refreshed and renewed, but as the journey resumes, our prayers don't. I have an article written by C.M. Bounds, and it's titled, "The Preacher in Prayer." My goodness, I told my wife the other day, in fact, I got it right here, but I'm not going to read the preacher in prayer thing because I told my wife to be a pastor because that's how powerful it is. And I keep it in this here because I have to read it once in a while, Brother Farney, to try to keep myself straight, keep my prayer where it needs to be, because he's very rough on a preacher when it comes to prayer. But here's what it says about prayer. Prayer is a spiritual work. And a human nature does not like taxing itself in things unseen. You see, human nature, he says, wants to sail to heaven under a favoring breeze, over a smooth sea. Like my wife said this morning, don't want anything interrupted. We just want to coast along. But you see, prayer is humbling work. It crucifies vainglory, and it will leave no place for the flesh to have glory. Then he goes on to say, it is easier not to pray than to bear the loss of our human standing. And so, the crying evil of these times, maybe all times, is little or no praying. And then he goes on to say, and of these two evils, little praying is perhaps worse than no praying. Well, you can say, how's that? Because it soothes the conscience. You understand what I'm saying? It's kind of a make-believe, a farce, and a delusion. We are talking, church, about seeking God through prayer. It can't be just something we just have to do every once in a while when we feel like it. It's not a fast prayer, a prayer where we say something over and over, a prayer that is not heard, a prayer waiting on God. A prayer requires our best times. But you know what? Prayer changes things. So all that right there, I've been through every bit of it. I'm just being honest with you. And if you were honest with me, you say the same thing. We've all been through the dry arids, those times where we just... But then, with those prayers, we got to add something. We got to add fasting. Don't like this word. You see, here's why I don't like it. It involves pushing away from the table, one of my favorite spots. I eat, in fact, one day, my wife told me I had a stress belly. I'm sorry. When I'm under stress, I like a little food. And a stress belly's not good for fasting. Because it makes us push away from the table. It involves the body coming under subjection to the Spirit. Through just a few meals or days. You see, the most powerful prayer is the request that is accompanied with fasting. You see, when you pray, it can change things. But when you pray and fast, it moves the hand of God. Now hold on. This is how important fasting is. And you say, what is so important about fasting? Oh, I'm glad you asked. Because I got a scripture. I've read it before. My wife taught this morning about going to the past, going back to the past. And so here's what I'm telling you, church. Prayer is important. We have to pray, because if we don't pray, we will lose out in our walk with God. That's how important prayer is. But you want to go to the next level in your walk with God, you got to add fasting. Isaiah 58:6 says this, "Is not this the fast that I have chosen?" Here's what fasting does. To loose the bands of wickedness. To undo heavy burdens. To let the oppressed go free. And that ye break every yoke. I'm saying, church, you pray and you add fasting. It's going to do some powerful, very powerful things. I'm going to say it, but here's where the father thing comes in, like the mother thing. Some of you can't get deliverance from your addiction, whatever that addiction is. Some of you can't get over the hurt, and you can't forgive those who have hurt you. Some of you let the enemy mess with your mind and tell you that you can't change the past and the future isn't worth anything. No, some of you are fighting habitual sin, depression, bitterness. But I've come to tell you, my wife talked about it this morning, about living in the past. I've come to tell you how to overcome living in the past. How to overcome those habitual sins, those depression, those bitterness, and those things that you can't seem to let go. I have given you the formula to break all those chains. Yeah. I've given the church the formula to go to the next level in God. And that's prayer and fasting. It will loose the bands of wickedness. It will undo the heavy burdens. It will let the oppressed go free. And it will break every chain. Church, God is wanting to do something in this place. But if you look, you look in the past, we have come a long way. I believe this church has went to a different level. And we have met that level. But I believe now we're going to another level. But to get through this next level, we're going to have to raise ourselves spiritually. Because every level, Brother Farney, we go through is going to take more. It's going to take more prayer. It's going to take fasting. It's going to take every level. It's going to be harder. The enemy's going to try to be stronger. But if we put prayer and fasting together, that enemy can't do nothing to this place. So my question to the church is, are you ready to see things in your own life change? And see big things in this church change. And so are you willing to do what it's going to take to see these things happen? We got people struggling in here with all different things that I just said. And if you really want to see something change in that situation in your life, we got to pray and we got to fast. Let's stand. I just want to reassure you of something. I don't know if this is right or wrong. And it's not saying something about my wife and I. But you know what? This is being preached in our other churches. This is just not her and I. Sometimes we've preached before we've heard Dan preach it. That's how important this right here, Brother Farney, is. God is trying to tell his church, I'm trying to get you ready. And if you want to go if you got a situation in your life and you're really serious about getting that taken care of, here's what you got to do. This is what I'm giving you as a church. And you might say, well, God didn't tell me to fast. Well, I'm telling you. I'm not God, but I'm telling you. If you want to get rid of the situation in your life, this is how you do it. This is not a message to run the aisles. I understand that. But you know what this is? It's a message that's going to change the church. I'm not the best preacher, but this is what God told me. I feel God told me to preach. So I'm asking you today. I'm going to come to the church in the next week or so with as a church. I don't want to do it as individual. Because if you do it together, it seems to work better. If you ever went to a gym and tried to keep it up by yourself, you got somebody there with you that's doing the same thing, and well, to me, it's a lot easier. I just don't go to the gym. That's easier for me. But when the whole church, we're all in this together. We're all doing it. So I'm going to come to you in the next week or so with a plan, thank you, of what we're going to do. And I'm telling you, church, this is going to work. We're right on the edge of something big going to happen. And my wife said, forgetting the past is number one. We got to let go of the past. The past has been forgiven. Our name is changed. So when we let go of the past, now what we do is we pray and we fast. Things are going to change. Souls are going to be saved. Brother Jerry, when they drive down this road, they're going to feel something. He said something to me the other night. He said, I want what we feel here to gush out into the yard and go out into the subdivision. Here's the formula for that to happen. When we pray and we begin to fast and let God begin to work, it's going to change this place. and it will change your life.